I just wanted to welcome everybody to Navigating Senior Care. We put together this trusted panel of experts to help you as you navigate care for yourself or a loved one, as it can be extremely confusing and overwhelming to do it on your own. So I'm going to first introduce each one of our experts off to the left over here, their line of work, and then invite each one of them to come up and talk about what it is they do and how they assist families in navigating care. After each one of them has a chance to make their introductions, we will open it up to you, the guests, to ask questions that you have. So I encourage you to write down as many questions as you have. Lisa from Change Agents has provided you with notepads inside of your folders, so you can take down notes. If there are no questions, I have a list of topics or things that we often see as families are gathering information that I will be asking you, and we can break off into groups to discuss, then to talk about it together in a large group. In your folders in front of you have lots of great information from these panelists up here in the areas of elder law attorney, or elder law, finance, and RE/MAX results, which Lisa's from, and also something from Ebenezer on navigating senior care and funding options and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to look through that. If you need to get up and move around, please do so, or stand off to the side. I know it can be a long time sitting down. We do ask that you hold questions as the panel is speaking until it's time for that. And I worked in senior care in various roles, helping families and older adults for over 13 years, so I'd be happy to answer any questions during that portion as well. So, first we have Teresa Johnson. Teresa Johnson is attorney of counsel with Elder Law Services. Elder Law Services PLLC focuses on assisting families with planning for life's transitions by helping with end-of-life documents, wills, trusts, as well as lifetime decision-making documents like healthcare directives, powers of attorney, and paying for long-term care. And then it has parentheses, medical assistance. Elder Law Services strives to provide comfort and peace of mind to their clients and their caregivers by giving advice and counsel during some of life's most difficult times. So if we can give Teresa a little round of applause, and then she can come up.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, everybody. I did pass out handouts. Does everybody have one, or does anybody need one? Those in the back, you can maybe steal one from a table. It's that one right on your right there, next to your green candy.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a clicker too. Okay, so the title of the presentation today is Asset Protection. This is a notice. This is just a disclaimer. I'm an attorney. I have an attorney. They tell me I have to say this. Anything I say today doesn't create an attorney-client relationship between us. Nothing said in the presentation or in the answering of questions constitutes the providing of legal advice to you. I'm providing this free seminar for educational purposes only. And Rachel mentioned that I am attorney of counsel. I work with another attorney, the founder of the firm, by the name of David Fitch. We both work out in the community, which means we don't have brick and mortar offices. We come to you wherever you want us to go. Your home, an assisted living facility, nursing home, coffee shop, restaurant, whatever is most comfortable for you is where we go to meet. So today, my objective is to briefly cover, because I only have 20 to 25 minutes, I've been told, basic estate planning, paying for long-term care, asset treatment, and Medicaid, but most importantly, to answer your questions. And it's my understanding that we're going to hold all those questions till the second hour of today's presentation. So if you want to hold those, I'm happy to assist you as best I can at that time. So on the topic of basic estate planning, everyone here has something that they need to do to protect assets. So everyone here has assets. No matter how much or how little, you all have something that you want to do to protect. So today we're going to discuss healthcare directives, powers of attorney, wills and trusts. So first we'll start with healthcare directives. What is a healthcare directive? Who needs them? Where are they used? Why do you need one? And then warnings related to healthcare directives. So what is a healthcare directive? A healthcare directive is a legal document that gives another person the legal ability to make healthcare decisions for you when you can no longer make them for yourself. So that's the key. You're naming somebody to act as your agent when you can no longer make those decisions. So you're in a coma or you've lost capacity. This is the person that a hospital or medical personnel would look to make healthcare decisions for you. They define the ways that you want to be treated, cared for during your life, so while you're alive. Who needs them? Honestly, everybody over the age of 18 needs them. We all need them. No matter how old we are, no matter how young we are, anybody over the age of 18 needs them. The older we are, obviously, the more important they become. Where are they used? They're used at your regular physician's office, they're used in hospital admissions, they're used in emergency rooms, and they're also used places where you are traveling. So what we tell clients is to take the healthcare directive, take a copy to their doctor's offices, keep a copy in their glove compartment for when they travel, put one in their carry-on luggage, so if they are away from home and they're in another state, this is when that document would become critical. If something happens and somebody needs to make decisions for you, it would tell that medical personnel, that hospital, that this other person has the ability to make those decisions for you. Why do you need one? If you don't have one, and a medical situation or crisis arises, if you don't have one, someone on your behalf may be forced to go to court to get a guardianship over you in order to be able to make those decisions for you. And most often, if you go to court to get that guardianship, it's going to be the person you would have named as your agent in your document anyway. But I'm going to tell you, going to court to get that guardianship is much more expensive than just having that healthcare directive. Also, your medical care will be more timely if you have that document. So some warnings. Watch out. Thinking that you have a healthcare directive when what you have is actually a living will. That is an older document that used to be used. That governed end-of-life decisions. Not the same as a healthcare directive and no longer used. Or thinking you have a post rather than a healthcare directive. I will talk about that in a moment. So what you need to do, more warnings, is make sure that your healthcare directive is updated. If somebody dies, if your agent dies, and you don't have a backup agent named, then you don't have a healthcare directive any longer. No agent, no healthcare directive. So don't delay, create one now.
What happens then,
If you don't have a healthcare directive and somebody needs to make decisions for you on your behalf, they will need to go to court and get a guardianship over you.
What if nobody gives a hoot?
Somebody gives a
Yes, somebody gives a hoot. The hospital, somebody's going to care. Somebody has to make decisions for you. So the other warning I mentioned was thinking you have a healthcare directive when what you really have is a POLST. POLST is Provider Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. That is a document that is given to you by your medical professional. So it creates standing doctor's orders covering things such as do not resuscitate, do not intubate, comfort, intervention, and sustaining treatments, and the type of interventions allowed. So if you have a POLST, you still need a healthcare directive. One does not replace the other. The POLST is signed by a medical professional and the patient or a patient's agent if necessary. So next I'll move along to powers of attorney. So what is a power of attorney? Power of attorney governs where healthcare directives govern anything having to do with your flesh. A power of attorney governs anything having to do with your financial situations. So it's a legal document that gives another person the legal ability to make financial decisions for you when you can and when you cannot. So power of attorney is a very powerful document. It is valid the day it is signed. So you need to make sure you trust the person who you name as your power of attorney. The powers granted are usually very broad, and what it does is creates a person that can stand in your place for all the powers you grant. And when we draft them, they're typically very broad, meaning that they can step in your shoes for anything related to property, financial, anything that where you would need to sign your name that's not a healthcare decision. Who needs them? Again, anyone over the age of 18 needs them. The older we are, the more important they become. And yes, I have these documents. Otherwise, I would not be standing here telling you to have them. So where is the power of attorney used? I am guessing that Lisa and Maura both see these documents quite often. They're used at banking and brokerage houses. They're used in real estate matters. When they become really critical, or say you need to apply for government assistance, county assistance, paying for long-term care, whatever it might be, and you no longer have the ability to sign your name, you no longer have the capacity to do so, this is when your power of attorney would sign on your behalf. And that's when we run into those a lot, where somebody no longer has the power to sign their own name. And then what happens? Again, same thing. If you don't have one and that crisis arises that requires your signature, somebody would have to go to court again to get a conservatorship over you. That's different. Guardianship for your health, conservatorship for your financial matters. Again, it's much less expensive to have this power of attorney than it is to establish a conservatorship, and your needs would be met more quickly. So warnings again, be very careful on selecting your agents. You really do need to trust them. Also, keep your power of attorney updated. If one of your agents dies and you don't have somebody named as a backup, the power of attorney is no longer effective. You no longer have one. Also, make certain that you have what's called a durable power of attorney. And what this means is there's a box on there that you can check that says that the document is effective if you are incapacitated or incompetent. And that is when that document is really worth its weight in gold. Minnesota law changed in January of 2014 because of some legislative changes in 2013. The new form is a statutory power of attorney form. It is 5 pages long. However, if it is a validly executed document, you take it into a bank, the bank is required to presume that it is a valid document. So they should not give you any problems with that document. We have run into some issues. However, they should by law be required to honor those documents. Okay, moving right along to wills and trusts. What is a will? A will is a document that directs the distribution of your estate after your death through a legal process called probate. What is a trust? A trust is a document that directs the trustee how to manage your estate during your life and following your death. So it is a contract that is not governed by probate law. So who can make a will or trust? Again, any competent person, 18 years of age or older. Why should you have one? Well, if you want to have any control over how your assets are divided after you die, you need either a will or a trust. Perhaps you want to make a gift to a church, or you have somebody in your family that you don't want to get anything. You need to have it in a will or a trust. I think we've seen a lot of things in the news about what happens if you don't have a will or a trust. This is what it looks like. So if you don't have a will or a trust, and this is where the 1-year-old Prince estate that's going on right now, this is what the judges are trying to work through and figure out, and what the attorneys are all fighting over. This is what happened to Prince's estate. So if you don't have a will or a trust, it'll go down to your children. If you don't have children, it'll look up to your parents, then to siblings, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and then what's called next of kin. So that's statutory. Minnesota decides essentially where it goes if you don't decide for yourself. So some warnings. Don't get caught into thinking that probate is always bad. I always tell people it's not a 4-letter word. Having to go to probate isn't the worst thing that could happen. There are times when a trust makes more sense. There are times when a will makes more sense. However, there are also times when I meet with clients and I determine they don't need either. Because things are titled as such, or they don't have anything that's going to pass through probate, or like I said, they're titled as such, or beneficiary designations, or whatever it might be, they may not even need a will or a trust, but ask. So I'm not ever going to try to sell you something I don't think you need just to have you draft that document with me. So the goal is to leave a legacy and don't leave just money. You want to leave it to the people who are going to appreciate it and decide where you want your estate to end up. Okay. Now on to the other topic. I think I'm doing okay on time here, Rachel. You might not kick me off the stage.
I'm not even managing it, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm almost 15 minutes in, and we should be pretty good here.
You're fine.
So, Lisa, she's ready to talk for an hour. So now we'll talk about the big elephant in the room when you're looking at facilities, looking at moving out of your home, deciding you might need some long-term care, and that's the paying for the long-term care. So here, I'm going to steal one of my own presentations so I know what's coming up next. Okay, so what is long-term care? Long-term care is, again, paying for wherever you might end up once you leave your home. So foundations for planning for that long-term care include giving attention to your health, your mind, your relationships, your values, and any legal planning. Everybody want to turn the page here? So each long-term care planning area is impacted by the condition of our foundations. So our planning needs to be flexible to adapt to any changes that might arise. For most people, these are the top three planning areas. They're looking at housing, they're looking at healthcare, and they're looking at the financial requirements for each of those. And Rachel and Luke could probably talk more about the next part, as well as Lisa talking about housing options, senior housing options. They might be able to stay. You might be able to stay in your own home. You have your personal residence. You might move into a family member's home. There's senior independent living, which would be a facility or an apartment building that might not have any services that are provided. But then there's also senior independent living that does have some services. So if you might need some assistance with bathing or with even some just cleaning, house cleaning, cooking, meals provided. So there's a lot of different options. Then we go down to assisted living and then that skilled nursing home care. My understanding is that Ebenezer provides the whole continuum of care. So there's healthcare needs. There's factors to consider. For example, what is your current diagnosis? How are you today? And I talk to people, I meet with clients, and what is your health? What are your doctors saying? What are your kids saying? How are you feeling? How are you doing? I meet with 50-year-olds who, I feel crummy, my diabetes is out of control, whatever it might be. And then I meet with 90-year-olds who are still living at home, and they're doing great. They're just fine, and that's where they're going to stay for several more years. So age doesn't matter. It's all, it's where you're at right now. So then you also look at family history. Is there any chronic disease such as diabetes? Is there any history of heart disease or stroke? And is there a family advocate? My favorite client meeting is walking into a meeting, and my client is always the elderly person. That is my client. However, the person who normally calls me for an appointment is most often as an adult child of that person. And my favorite meeting is when I walk into a meeting at a family member's home, and every one of their children is around the table talking with me. They are all there. They are all hearing what I have to say. They are all involved in the decision making and in understanding where mom or dad or both are at right now. I leave those meetings my heart is just full of gladness because I see that there are several family advocates in that family, and it shows that they care and that they want a voice in the decisions. Okay, now on to the mundane county financial requirements. So how are financial requirements met for paying for that long-term care, wherever it might be? You have personal resources, you have liquid assets, non-liquid, you might have an interest in a business still. You have family resources, whether it might be time in caring for you or monetary, children, siblings, other relatives. There's insurance coverage. There's limited coverage with private medical insurance and Medicare in, maybe some rehab environments or transitional care. And then more comprehensive would be long-term care insurance. And I'm sure Maura would maybe address that more so with selling long-term care insurance. Obviously, at my age, it's more economical for me to purchase it than it would be for some of you to purchase it at this point. And then there's government assistance. There's Minnesota medical assistance, and then there's Veterans VA aid and attendance, which is a little known pension that can be available to some vets or veteran spouses. I'm going to talk about elderly waiver. So what does elderly waiver mean? In the world of medical assistance, that is what the federal government calls it. Okay, that's what the budget from the federal government calls medical assistance. Or actually, let me back up. Minnesota calls it medical assistance. The government calls it, the federal government calls it Medicaid. So Medicaid, medical assistance, the same thing. So the federal government calls it Medicaid, Minnesota calls it medical assistance. Elderly waiver came about. I don't know, many of you probably went to visit family members in nursing homes where you'd see all these people just lined up and you were wondering, why are they here? They don't look like there's anything wrong with them. I don't understand why they're sitting here in this facility. But what happened was, for a long time, the government would only pay for nursing home care for people who needed assistance. So what Minnesota did was they applied for what's called a waiver. An elderly waiver allows the government to provide assistance for assisted living facilities as well. So EW, or elderly waiver, is used in assisted living or most often memory care units. So what does EW provide? It provides county assistance to pay for care in those facilities. So eligibility for EW, I'll talk first about the income rules. And I'll tell you this much, if I had been giving this presentation a year ago, I would have needed a half hour just to explain what I'm going to explain in one slide right now. In July, new rules came into effect that make it so much easier to determine EW. So if you have met with an attorney or if you've heard somebody talk since before July 1st of 2016, I'll tell you the rules have changed. Okay? So this is much easier to understand, made my life and work a lot easier. So if the applicant income is less than or equal to $2,205, then you take out $988. That is the waiver obligation. So that is what the person who is applying to be in the facility has to pay towards their care. The county picks up the rest. Okay? If the applicant income is less than or equal to $988, there's no waiver obligation. If the single applicant income is greater than that $2,205, you have to spend down to $792. And why there's that difference there, we don't know. Again, talk to the legislature about filling that hole there. It's a crazy hole. A married applicant with a spouse receiving any income allocation, I'll talk about that a little bit more. This is going to be a little bit confusing because I am covering EW in 2 or 3 slides. This is normally an hour presentation. I'm trying to give you just a little bit of information. I can address questions during the question and answer session as well. So a married applicant with a spouse receiving an income allocation must spend down to $97, and spend downs need to be toward those EW services or medical expenses of the applicant, meaning medication or bathing or transferring or any of those services that they may receive.
What does spend down mean?
Spend the money. They have to spend it down. So that difference between the $2,205 for that single applicant down to that $792, spend down means they spend their own money towards their care before the obligation kicks in. That makes sense? Spend down means you're reducing the income dollar amount. You're reducing the income to that dollar amount. If you are single and apply for EW and you move in, you are allowed to keep $97 of your income. The rest of it goes to the facility. So you spend down to $97. Okay? So there's asset rules. If you're married, all marital assets are considered regardless of which spouse owns the asset. So you have an IRA account in your name. Your spouse doesn't have an IRA account. They're the one applying. Doesn't matter. Assets of one spouse are considered the assets of both spouses, so they are combined. Also, a couple of things I'll throw in there as well. If you have a trust, that doesn't matter. If you have a prenuptial agreement, they don't care. They're assets of both of you. So there's 3 different categories of assets. And I'm gonna run over here, Rachel, sorry. I only have a few more slides. Okay, so 3 categories of assets. There's excluded assets. Excluded assets include, if you're married, your homestead, up to about $550,000. Equity up to $550,000. One motor vehicle regardless of value, and all of your personal property. Those are excluded assets,
What's the third
meaning
one?
not counted. What?
What's the third one? I didn't.
All your personal property.
Oh,
Very technical term, means all your stuff. Everything that's in your house.
So could you buy a Lamborghini and that would be considered your one car?
So Rachel wants to know if she could go out and buy a Lamborghini and that would be considered her car. Yes. It does not matter the value of the vehicle. Okay? There's also unavailable assets. There's a few different animals related to unavailable assets, which I won't get into today. A couple of them are special kinds of trusts called pooled special needs trusts. There's also medical assistance annuities, and what I'll tell you about those is they are not your garden variety annuity. So if you have an Edward Jones annuity asset that's annuitized, that's not the annuities I'm talking about here. But I would go through with you on an individual basis and discuss what those are. Also unavailable would be prepaid funeral policies. I saw that they're having a coffee talk here on funeral planning. We are all the time talking to clients about prepaying their funeral. And then also unavailable would be any real estate that you own with somebody besides your spouse. Then there's countable assets. That's everything else. All your money, all your cash, all your gold, all your bonds, IRAs, retirement accounts, those are all countable. Eligibility is determined by something called Spousal Impoverishment rules, and this is if you're married. That's related to income. I'm going to go back and just talk about assets. I don't have a slide for assets. Okay, so for assets, if you are married, the community spouse is allowed to keep $120,900, okay, plus the home, the vehicle, the personal property. And the applicant spouse, that's the person that's applying, is allowed to keep $3,000. Everything else needs to be reduced. These numbers change annually, so what we tell clients is don't plan to the penny, because what you value something and then what the county might come in and value something might be very different. So we tell you not to plan to the penny related to this. So if you are single applicant, you have to spend down to $3,000. You have to reduce your assets to $3,000 before you can apply for county assistance. So go get married. I'm kidding. So the spousal impoverishment rules related to income, they allow for the community spouse to keep $2,005 per month of income, provided there's enough income in that marital union. So pension, Social Security, whatever there might be. If housing costs exceed $602 a month, so for example, you have utility costs, homeowners insurance, all of that exceeds $602 a month, the protected income can reach a dollar figure of, is there a pointer on this? Of $3,022.50 a month. That's the maximum that the community spouse would be allowed to keep, okay, of the income of the marital union. So for example, dad is an applicant with an income of $2,300 a month. Mom's income is only $600 a month, so an allocation from dad's income of $1,405 goes to mom. to get her up to that $2,500 a month. Then the rest of Dad's income goes to the facility to pay for his care. So for reducing assets, what you do is you convert countable assets to excluded assets. So a lot of what you do is you might fix up that house. You might fix up your homestead if it needs a new roof or there's been a lot of maintenance that needs to be done. That's a way to reduce assets by converting the countable assets to excluded assets. You also convert countable assets to unavailable assets. And that's where those prepaid funeral policies might come into play. And then you can spend money. But here's the warning here, just no gifts. The look back period on gifts, I'm sure you've all heard gifts, is 5 years. So you need to be able to make it 61 months before you need to apply for medical assistance on any gift. And something we hear a lot of is, well, what about the $14,000 a year you can give for the IRS guidelines? The medical assistance does not care about that $14,000 a year. It is literally $0, no gifts. So with that warning, my next slide talks about questions, but we're going to hold the questions to the end. There is my contact information and the tag, we make house calls, because that's what we do. Don't have office space, so that is me.
All right, so next we have Lisa Dunn. Lisa is a former licensed graduate social worker, bless her heart. She's been a licensed real estate agent since 2003. Remember, I changed that. I gave you an extra 10 years. And has dedicated her career to working with older adults, their families, and the professionals in the industry. Lisa has earned the following designations: Certified Senior Advisor, Realtor Senior Advisor, Senior Real Estate Specialist, and graduate of the Realtor Institute. The Association of Realtors hires Lisa to consult and speak to other real estate agents about how to better serve their older adult clients. Please welcome Lisa Dunn.
So I've been doing this for 14 years and I've never seen an elder law attorney give a presentation in less than an hour. I bet you're feeling a little like you just drank out of a fire hose. So the name of today's panel is Navigating Senior Care. So why is a real estate agent standing up here talking with you? Because I'm not just any real estate agent. Because what happens when you're selling your home, you're thinking about moving into senior housing. You're thinking about how to sell your home. And while Teresa was talking, you may have been thinking, well, medical assistance doesn't apply to me. Never say never. Life can change in a moment. And the way that you sell your house can affect your eligibility for medical assistance. So if you leave today with one thing, there's one thing I'm hoping that you'll remember, that the time to do the planning, the time to think about future senior housing, the time to do the financial planning is exactly when you're saying it doesn't apply to me. The worst time to do it is during a crisis, because the people that do it now before they need to are the people that have a plethora of options available to them later. The people that neglect this planning, which let's face it, that's just kind of human nature to neglect this planning. The people that neglect this planning get what's left over. They don't get a lot of options, and we see it all the time. So does Rachel. So please take some of the information Teresa gave you and take advantage of it and do some planning ahead of time. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, yeah, I'm a recovering social worker. I'm going to ask you to play a little game with me. How many of you have lived in your homes for at least 10 years? Keep them up if you've lived in your home for over 20 years. 30? Who's going to win? 40? 50? 45. How many years? 55. Back row? 55. Same. My winner is 96 years old. He lived in his house as he was growing up, and his parents gave him the house, and he lived there for 96 years before he moved. And do you think life is a little different when you're selling your home after you've lived there for 50 years than when you bought it? Right. So it's a little different skill set that you need for a real estate agent, which is why we specialize in working with seniors, because there's a whole different set of concerns you have now than when you were 30, when you bought your house, right? Okay, So one of the things I want to talk to you about is a little bit of housekeeping. You've got this drawing slip in front of you. This one is for mine, and I promise we won't sell your name to anybody. It is for a door prize we're giving out for a manual called It's Your Move. This is a manual that we put together particularly for our clients. It answers some questions about how do I shop for senior housing, how do I shop for a real estate agent, how do I get my house ready for the market. And in 20 minutes, I can't cover everything that's in this manual. So if you're interested in being entered into that door prize, fill those slips out. And I think you've got another door prize slip in front of you as well from Ebenezer.
Actually, that's just if you want more information about Ebenezer, but that's
More
prize
information.
of it in and of itself.
Rachel's the prize. Okay. So, for 14 years I've been working with older adults. And for 14 years I've spent a lot of time and energy trying to figure out what are the best tools and what's the best information that I can give you to make this move process easier and less stressful. And I'll tell you, for the last 14 years, my clients have helped me figure out what works. So I'm standing here today to tell you, because my clients have taught me this information, these aren't things you learn in real estate school. In fact, how many of you watch HGTV? Anybody not familiar with HGTV? It's 24-hour-a-day programming about how to get your house ready for the market, how to buy a house in 3 days, how to save money buying a house. HGTV is not where I would encourage you to get your professional real estate information. It's entertainment. And what happens at HGTV is they tell you all of the reasons why you should do all of these really awesome things to your home, but it's not necessarily the way that we sell homes. And it's one of the things that keeps our clients stuck in their home, because they watch these television shows and they think that they need to change the carpeting and change the countertops and change all of their appliances, when really in this market that's not necessary. The reasons that keep our clients stuck hasn't changed in 14 years. How many of you are excited about moving? None of you? One. Okay, there's always one. One is excited about the change. And some of us are hardwired that way, to be excited about change. Most of us are not. So what about moving gives you a stomach ache? The stuff. I'll tell you that the reasons our clients have told us that they say stuck fall into 3 buckets. Number 1 is financial. I'm worried about how long my money will last me. I don't have a monthly payment on my home now, and now I'm going to be moving to a rental situation where I have to pay rent. What will that mean for my lifestyle? Those concerns about finances are very real, because that's about our security. So that's one of the fears that we hear from our clients. The other is emotional. I know what to expect on a day-to-day basis in my home, and now I'm moving into a very unfamiliar situation where I don't know the people. More importantly, I don't know if I like the food. Where will we spend our holidays? Because right now my home is my family hub. Where will my kids go, and will my kids go where I go to visit me? So the second bucket is emotional, and the third bucket is stuff. Stuff deserves its own buckets. Those are the 3 things that happen when people think about moving. These are the list of fears that they come up with in their head. And now that we have come up with all of these reasons to not move, all of these reasons that we're afraid, by the time I get out to our new clients' homes to sit down and have a consultation with them, what do you think is the first emotional word they share with me at their kitchen table? I am overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed, I'm completely paralyzed, and I have no idea to start. So I'm going to give you the first tip that we give our clients when we're sitting down to meet with them about where to start. And the very first question I usually ask them is, what wakes you up at night when you're thinking about moving? What are the things that give you butterflies and seize your stomach up? What is the one thing? For some of us, it's money. For some of us, it's that room. You know that room where you put all the stuff because you don't know where else to put it? We all have that room. For some of us, it's that room. For some of us, it's our husband's tools in the garage. For all of us, the reason is different, but I'll tell you that if we went around and surveyed you, I'd be willing to bet that your reasons and your fears for being overwhelmed are going to be not that different from the person sitting next to you or behind you, because in 14 years, those reasons haven't changed. So when we sit down with our clients, we look for the very first thing. We tell our clients, stop trying to do everything and do one thing, because that will help with those feelings of being overwhelmed. We start with the one thing. You know, the Smithsonian did this really cool experiment called 29 dominoes. Anybody familiar with this? They started with a domino that was 0.5 millimeters high. The next domino was 1.5 times larger than that. The next domino was 1.5 times larger than that. And they took the first domino and they tipped it, and it had enough energy to tip the next domino and the next domino. By the time they got to the 29th domino, it was big enough and had enough energy to knock over the Empire State Building. Moving is the same way. We just have to find that one thing to get the energy moving forward for you to take away all of those feelings of being overwhelmed. And for our clients, what we do is help you identify the one thing, and we may even need to do it with you to get you started. But that's where we start. Find your one thing. The next thing I wanted to talk with you about and warn you about is to get a real estate agent involved early. One of the mistakes people make is waiting until the end of this process to get a real estate agent early, because so many people think they have to clean their house before we come out to see you. I promise you don't. You know, the people that think they have a lot of stuff are never the people that think they have a lot of stuff. It's those people that don't think they have a lot of stuff that have a lot of stuff. Don't worry about cleaning your house for a real estate agent. We're interested in your stuff. We're going to be looking at the four walls. What a real estate agent can do for you, in particular in this market, is save you money. Many people will talk to all their friends, and everybody's a real estate expert, and get advice on what to do to get their house ready. And they're going to start spending money on things that won't give them the return on investment that they spent. Let me give you an example. Every year, the National Association of Realtors comes out with a list on the best return on investment for your home. What do you think those two most important rooms are? Kitchen and bathroom, because who makes the decisions about real estate? Ladies, right, sorry guys. So what happens is people will start spending money on things that don't give them a return on investment. The report from the National Association of Realtors gives you the highest and best rate of return on investment, but not one of them is listed at 100%. So if you're planning on moving in 6 months to a year, now is not the time to remodel your kitchen. If you're moving in 5 years and you get to enjoy it, go for it. So these are the kinds of conversations you can have with a real estate agent about when, how, and where to spend your money to get your house ready for the market. What have you heard about the real estate market? I pulled statistics on Bloomington this morning because I was thinking about you. Let me tell you what I found. From January to this time last year, the median sale price in Bloomington was $215,000. From January to now of this year, the median price is $235,000. That's an increase of 9%. It's normal for a median sale price to go up 3 to 4%. So that's significant. In 2016, it took us 82 days on average to sell a home. This year it takes 54 on average. We've all heard those stories where we put a house on the market on Friday and by Saturday at 8 a.m. we have 13 offers. That's real, and it's happening every day. However, when we look at some of the higher priced homes, those are going to take a little longer to sell. That's why these averages might sound a little high to you compared to the stories we're hearing, right? 54 days. Now this is compelling, and this statistic is really meaningful. On average, when we talk about the number of months that are available on the market, an average market, a normal, healthy market, has 5 months of homes on the market. What that means, if no other listings come on the market, it would take us 5 months to sell everything. In Bloomington last year, it was 1.6 months. Anybody want to take a guess what it is now? It's lower. It's 1.3 months. It's brutal out there for home buyers, but guess what this means for you? This is the best time it has ever been to sell a home. In fact, a month ago I started talking with my husband about selling our home because it's such a good time. It's an incredible time to sell a home. But as I say this to you, there's something else I also want to say to you. For you, if you're planning a move, if you're downsizing to purchase something, it might be a challenging time to move because you don't want to settle for something, right? So it might take a little longer for you to find something to purchase. So you may have to be prepared to move more than once, if that's what you want to do. There's certainly things that we can do through negotiating to minimize that. We could sell your home first and make it contingent on you finding your next home. But if there are those of you here who are thinking about a move to a rental situation, or if you're here on behalf of somebody who's thinking about moving to senior housing, the market in senior housing is very similar to what's happening in real estate. Anybody here looking for a 2-bedroom? There's a waiting list for those. So if you're thinking that you're going to move into senior housing with a 2-bedroom and you don't have your name on a waiting list, it's going to be a while. So if that's your case, do not let anybody list your home unless you know exactly where you're going to end up. Because what's happening is Rachel and Luke get calls from people who sold their homes before their unit is ready. And they say, well, you want to come in next month? And Luke says, yeah, but your unit isn't ready yet. So you have to plan ahead when you're moving in this market because things are moving so quickly. Don't let anybody list your home unless you know exactly where you're going to move to. Deal? Okay. Other tips I have for you. Get your realtor involved early. Turn off your TV. No more watching HGTV between now and the time you move. And how to get your house ready. So I told you earlier that as a real estate agent, we don't learn these things in real estate school. I learned these from our clients, from moving hundreds and hundreds of older adults, both into senior housing and seniors who were downsizing. And one thing I know is because of these wonderful shows like HGTV, a lot of our clients think that they need to spend a lot of time getting their home ready. However, when you've lived in your home for 50 years, the last thing you want to hear is for somebody to tell you to take the wallpaper down. Because what they just did is give you another reason to stay in your home, right? So what we want to do is we want to start by asking you, how do you want to move? And what's important to you? And what are your goals? When would you like to move? And how would you like this move to go? And in this market, it's never been a better time to start with those questions. We start with what your goals are. And if your goal is to not do a darn thing to your house, you get to decide that. And then it is your real estate agent's job to follow through with what your goals are. It's not your job to remove the wallpaper just to make your real estate agent's job easier. Okay? So we start with your goals and what's important to you. The best way to get your home ready for the market, this is worth the price of admission today. If it's broken, fix it. If it's dirty, clean it. And that's about it. I'm not talking about countertops. I'm not talking about carpet. I'm not talking about wallpaper. Now in Bloomington, you have the pleasure of having a truth in housing inspection done. So many of those items you will want to have done prior to the sale of your home. However, Bloomington does have a contingency plan in place where you can ask the buyer to take responsibility for those items. So if you don't want to, you wouldn't even have to do that. All right. I know things are swimming around in your head, and I wish we had time for questions now. All right. So I've got one more point I want to make to you. There are two things that people most commonly make a mistake with when they go to hire a real estate agent. What do you think the two most common questions are When people go to interview a real estate, what are the 2 things people want to know from a real estate agent?
Commission rate.
What do you charge? What's your commission rate? And
What can you sell?
what's the sale price of my home going to be? 2 most common questions people start with. I don't think you should start there. If you ask me what my commission is and I tell you 1%, but I just got my license last week and I haven't sold any homes yet, I don't have any experience in negotiating, and I have no idea how to market your home, but I'll charge you 1% when it sells. Does that sound like a good deal? No. So I'm going to give you some advice on how to interview a real estate agent, because this is something else that tends to give people a lot of trepidation, because the real estate industry hasn't exactly done a very good job of being very transparent about a lot of these things. So these are secret hints that are now going to be videotaped and put on cable TV. So here we go. Here we go. When you hire a real estate agent, the very first rule is they should be professional and they should be full-time. In this market, when it's so good, I think there's a lot of part-time real estate agents or agents who are doing this as a hobby. Yeah, now is not the time to hire your cousin's best friend's neighbor's son because they just got their real estate agent. You deserve to have somebody who knows what they're doing. Make sure they're full-time and they're professional. Secondly, you have to like them and trust them. This is going to be somebody who's going to be representing you in the sale of a pretty large asset. So listen to your intuition. You know if you can work with this person or not. Thirdly, any real estate agent that you hire is going to come marching into your home, onto your dining room table, and they're going to have all of these really fancy marketing materials. One of the things you should be looking for is to be sure that they hire a professional photographer. If they show up to your home with their cell phone and start taking pictures, send them packing. Because one of the most important things that we do is market your home on the internet. The first time somebody will see your home is when they're sitting at home in their pajamas in front of their computer, and the first impression of your home will be of those pictures, and they should be from a professional photographer. And then, after you look through all their marketing material, you understand they're full-time, and you like them well enough, I think it's time to ask them how effective they are. Doesn't matter how pretty their marketing materials are, they better know what they're doing. So of the interview questions, and more of the interview questions are in this move manual, but I'm going to give you the best ones now. One is, how many homes have you listed in the last year? If in the last year they've only worked with 2 listings, but they've worked with 20 buyers, that tells you something. You want someone who knows how to market your home and work with listings, okay? Secondly, how many homes did you sell last year? The National Association of Realtors says the average is 6. My team sold 56 last year. So there's a really big range of experience out there. You also want to know what is the percentage of the list price compared to the sale price. So for example, if you have a $100,000 home, and in this market, with the information you have, you find out that they're only getting $80,000 for the home, they're selling homes at 80%, that's really low. They better be at least 96%. Another question to ask them is, of the listings you took this year, how many didn't sell? And why didn't it sell? Because it better be, in this market, it better be a pretty darn good reason why any agent isn't selling 100% of their listings. Would you agree? Put a sign in the yard and the thing sells? It may be because the homeowner they're working with decided to list it $150,000 too high or something like that. And that's beyond the agent's control, certainly. But you want to know what their statistics are. Now, after you have all of that information, you know them, you like their marketing, they're going to hire a professional photographer for you. Now you can ask them, what are you going to charge me? And now you can ask them, what's the good sale price for my home? I think it's a good idea to interview 2 real estate agents. The list price they give you should be pretty close. It's not an exact science. They won't be perfect, but they should be close. If there's a big difference between the 2, you better ask a 3rd real estate agent. Okay? Those are the best tips I've got for you in 20 minutes.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
And again, we'll have time for questions after we have our last speaker here. And I was just thinking as Lisa was talking and she asked about those drawing slips, Martin Luther Campus would be very happy to provide a gift certificate for a drawing with ours if you fill that out. So, and I think you grabbed my sheet with all your wonderful information about Mara. I mean, I'd like to pretend I know everything about you.
Oh, I could tell you something.
You could. Uh-oh, I don't know if I want to hear it.
Hey,
All right.
it's for after hours.
Okay, lastly, we have Mara Albrecht. Mara is the president and client advocate for Financial Wellness for You, LLC. She works with clients in their home to guide the financial decisions surrounding retirement and aging issues many will face, while enabling them to maintain their privacy and independence. Her goal is to assist successful aging by guiding the financial decisions of those facing the increasing challenge of maintaining their standard of living and the uncertainty of outliving their income. So let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Well, Lisa, I'm super happy that everything's being recorded because what I heard out of your whole presentation was I should get a new kitchen. And it's on tape. It's there. Again, my name is Maura. I get the privilege of working with families in their home and talking about that taboo discussion of money. And I don't know if it's specific to Minnesota, but most people don't like to talk about money. So again, I'm honored when I'm invited into a home and get to do that. So I think the big question for a lot of the families I work with is that peace of mind in my golden years, whatever that is, whatever age frame that is in for you. And what does that mean? And click. So I talk a lot about financial wellness. I look at our financial health as important as our physical and emotional health. So why do I need it? How do I get it? If it's that important, we all want it, right? And how is that going to benefit my life or my family's? So I like to start with the awareness. An awareness of my financial health has to do with what do I have and what does it mean to me? Not what it means to Mr. Jones down the street or my son out in California. It's what does it mean to me? I work primarily with older adults. When I get called in, oftentimes it's by an adult child, sometimes by the senior themselves. When we get overwhelmed with paperwork, with bills, with financial statements, it's isolating, it's frustrating, it's that overwhelming feeling Lisa was talking about that prevents us from moving forward. So we try to start addressing some of those things. I love this slide. My dad ran a company for 30 years on a yellow legal pad. There were computers. He said they were a fad. We would say as we were growing up, but Dad, there's such an easier way. And he said, I've never used one. I don't want one. Stop trying to do this. And yet we're bombarded every day with financial programs that are supposed to help us manage our finances. Oftentimes there's a disconnect between parents, all of us adults, and our children about who should manage our finances. My dad again looked at me and he said, all I see is a 17-year-old snotty girl that wants some money. I don't want you handling my finances. That discussion comes in is who's going to manage the inflows and the outflows. Again, what is your relationship? What is your family dynamic? And who in your family is able to help you do that? How are we going to use investments? Who's going to control them? And most importantly is how is my money going to be used? It better be the way I want to use it. All of these factors lead to stress. Again, we are Minnesota nice. We are passive aggressive. And I'm here to tell you every family has a dynamic. We just do. Some of those stressful factors are important documents. Teresa talked about wills and trusts, financial power of attorney, healthcare directive. We need those documents in a crisis. We want to know where they are prior to that crisis. Are my professional resources documented? This is very important. Who are the professionals in your life? I'll throw myself under the bus. When I was much younger and my kids were much younger, my accountant used to write on the bottom of my tax return, "Did you do your will?" It wasn't because I had a lot of stuff. It was because I had 3 young children, and if something happened to me or my husband, somebody needed to take care of them. As we've moved through life, my accountant needs to know my attorney, who needs to know my investment person, because all of those professionals in our life need to work together as we age. The big question, can I maintain my standard of living? Can I continue to spend what I'm spending today all the way to my death? Will I outlive my financial resources? We're living longer. Do I have enough? For many, it's can I maintain my financial independence? Meaning, can I continue to control my income, my expenses, the bills that are coming through, and the daily decisions that need to be made with those? Do I want to? Living longer, it increases our chances of experiencing poverty. 96 years old is a real average for a lot of the clients I'm working with. I met with a gentleman yesterday and he said, 95 and 6 months. This is a norm. 92% of those over age 65 are receiving Social Security. 50% of that population would be living at the poverty level without that Social Security income. It's significant. We have a greater chance of experiencing health-related issues. It was beautiful yesterday, it's rainy this morning. My knees don't feel the same as they did 20 years ago when I get out of bed. We're facing an increase in care costs. Again, if I need help getting in and out of the shower, there's gonna be a financial impact. Health and independence often requires long-term care, meaning someone to help with those daily cares that we have. So how do I get it? It's stressful. It's overwhelming. Many of us want to ignore any of it. So how do I get it? I use the analogy as the doctor. So we address our physical health. Hopefully we're addressing our mental and emotional health, but we don't ever want to talk about our money. We don't want to talk about the inflows, the outflows. So I'm saying let's put it on the same plane. I don't wait till my limb is hanging to go to the doctor. I talk about it much before then. Being financially well is meaning having an awareness of what I have, what it means to me. It's an identification process. What do I have beyond my stuff? And then it's coordination with the professionals in your life and community. What do I have? What does it mean in dollars? I meet with a lot of people that will say, well, there's money in the bank or there's money in the investment account, but I have no idea what that means to me on a daily basis. How long is it gonna last? If I continue to draw $5,000 from my account, when do I run out? Where's the red light? Identification of income sources. What comes in? What goes out? And what's left over? When I say income, it used to be a really easy thing. I went to work, I got a paycheck, my employer withheld the taxes, and I got the net. It's what I based my life on. We move into retirement, and all of a sudden, we are the employer. We are the boss, finally. But we're also responsible for withholding the taxes, getting them submitted, and figuring out what that net income is that we have to live on. For many of us, there's pensions, there's Social Security income. It's having an understanding of the investments that you hold and what kind of income can be produced from them. Savings in our home. What goes out? The outflows. I love it when I meet with young families and I say, what are your expenses? And I get my house, my car, insurance, and daycare. I'm like, really? That's all you spend? What I encourage people to do is say, what does it cost for you to walk out the door every day? Because there is a cost to us waking up, eating, breathing, and heading out for the day. Those are the numbers we need to identify. Those follow us everywhere. whether we're living in our own home and it's paid for, or we're living in a community. Medical, prescription drugs, insurance, these are all areas that we know are increasing. So how are we adjusting our spending plan to look at that? I put charity, I was laughing with Lisa, it's a big day in my life. It's April 18th and it's tax day. Woo! It's over. I work with a lot of families and I help them gather the information they need to take to their accountant. And the one thing that sticks out year after year where I don't see people making the adjustment is on those charitable contributions. So Minnesota, we are giving people. I love it. But when you are giving more than you're bringing in, because you never looked at it and adjusted it, we have a problem. So keeping an eye on that. The big question we're asking is there a gap? Do I have a gap between what's coming in and going out, my income and expense? And how am I going to address that? So we look at portfolio review. You guys are safe. My background's in investment planning. I sell nothing. I got nothing to sell. You're good. But we do want to look at it. We want to look at it and do an overall analysis and say, is it supporting my lifestyle? Can I be doing something different? We want to identify beneficiaries. Beneficiaries on our retirement accounts, on our life insurance, and some of our annuities is the way the money is going to transfer at our death. You're dead. You don't get to come back and say, I didn't mean that. And I say that because I see many policies where we have ex-spouses. And every time I'm like, wow, you must really love your ex-husband. And the answer is always, we're divorced, but he's still the beneficiary on your policy. So those have to be changed by you. Looking at titles, Teresa touched on some of the estate planning. We can do some transfer on death titles that helps the money go from you when you're living to exactly where you want it to go when you're passed. The allocation review, again, if my sole purpose in my investment is keeping what's there and earning some income, I want to be certain that I'm talking to my investment professional about that and about how much I need. That goes into the risk reward and the tax impact. Again, tax day. We saved money, hopefully, when we were working. Our employer put some money away for us. We put some money away. It's never been taxed. The big surprise for so many people is the distributions from our retirement plans are taxable income. It is not a go-to place to do my kitchen because I'm going to pay income tax on all of that. So having an awareness of that is really important as well. Documentation, organization. If you looked at my office today, you would think I'm nuts because there's no organization to it. Contact information. Families I work with, and I'll leave this out for you guys to look at after, I put together a binder for every family I'm working with. And what it's including is contact information. Who are the people in your life? I work in families' homes, so I want to know who the son or daughter is in town or who the doctor is. I want to know about your accountant. I want to know about your financial professional, and I want to know who your attorney is. Again, all of these people working together towards your financial health. Insurance agent and coverage. Again, I can't tell you the number of times I find policies that we're paying on and we don't own the car or the cabin anymore. Bank accounts. I laugh. We have an operating account in our household, and then we have 2 separate accounts. And those are separate. Nobody gets to ask what's in there. Most of us have them, but there is a time for consolidation. So having an understanding of where is the money going into. Oftentimes we've got Social Security being deposited, a pension being deposited, but we have money in another account. Really important to know how those transfers are working in and out. Safe deposit box, we still have them. Please tell somebody where the key is. Please write down what's in it. Because if your healthcare directive and your financial power of attorney are sitting in your safe deposit box, it helps no one. Those are documents we need a copy of, great, but know what's there. Again, Teresa went over the trust, the will, power of attorney, healthcare directives. Everyone over the age of 18, they are not sexy, they are not fun. All 3 of my girls are over 18. They all got them for their birthday. And let me tell you, it was not a great birthday present. Other than the occasions that we've had to use them. because if they're out of town. So really, really important. Those are living documents. The coordination is so important. You guys are not alone in this. You've accumulated professionals over your life. Get them all on the same table. That it takes a village is a very true statement. Know who those are. Know where the sources of income come from. It's personal, I get that. But if the kids don't know what account the money comes in and out of, or your professional doesn't, it's hard for them to help when they need to. Have a conversation with your family or your designated person, your advocate. Where are the important documents? If I can't do it, who do you want to do it? Because I promise you, 90% of the time it's going to be the kid that lives closest that's going to take over the checkbook. It does not mean the kid that lives closest is the best person to take over the checkbook. So be aware of that. Have that discussion. It's not a surprise. And then who's going to help coordinate the professional resources to make the whole system work? Identify that person in your life. I work with families to help them get the pieces together. So how is financial health going to benefit my life and my family? These are my ladies. I love these. I swear sometimes I just look at them because they're fun. I want to stress the importance of kind of a mind shift. Planning for retirement is very different than planning in retirement. Very different approaches, and you need to make that switch when the time comes. The meaning of retirement has changed. It's no longer a fixed date, rather a dynamic state affected by inflation, longevity, rising healthcare costs, and many other variables. It's a fluid situation. Planning for retirement is different than planning in retirement. So what do I get if I do all of that, right? Peace of mind. Peace of mind that I've got my ducks in a row. I have choice. I have control of where I'm going when I have an understanding of what it costs me here and what it might cost me over there. I've got choice and control. It's a reduction in stress. Oh my word. It's like tax day. It's done. It reduces the burden for others. We don't know what you want if you haven't told us. It reduces the potential for conflict. Again, believe it or not, Minnesota Nice, we have family dynamics. And some of them not so pretty. And it improves quality of life. If I can get up every day and know where I am and head out for the day being confident in what I'm doing, my financial health, my overall well-being is better. So we're going to open up for questions.
Yep.
Pass that on.
Yeah, let's give her a round of applause. So the reason we're all here is we want to hear from you guys. We want to answer your questions. So I think I'll just keep the mic over on this side so that they can pass between them, whoever is the most qualified to answer. And yeah, go from there.
Did you want immediate questions? Or?
I was gonna see if there was any broad questions. You guys have been writing down things, and then I do have a sheet somewhere that someone took. I don't know if it was.
Everybody keeps taking your sheets.
I know, and it had topics to engage conversation. So I'll find that. But let's start off. Let's start back there.
I have two questions for Teresa. Is 5 Wishes a healthcare document?
Okay, the first question is 5 Wishes a healthcare directive? Yes, it is. I believe Alina uses that form. Yes, it is. It is most often used within their system. So yes, it is a healthcare directive that is used. What I find with the 5 Wishes healthcare directive is that it's pretty lengthy. So a lot of people say, yes, I have a healthcare directive, but it's not filled out because there's a lot in that document, a lot of decisions to be made, and it's more specific to that healthcare system. So the ones that we draft are honestly 3 pages long. We don't make you fill a lot of stuff in, and they're broadly accepted. 5 Wishes is just fine within that Alina healthcare system though. So yes, it is a healthcare directive as long as you fill it out and have it completed.
And then the second question is, when you were talking about the asset rules, you said one vehicle is excluded. did that mean for a married couple or a single applicant?
The question is whether, when I was talking about the excluded assets for medical assistance purposes, for one vehicle, that is, whether it's just for a married couple or if it's also for a single applicant, one vehicle, regardless of value, can also relate to a single applicant, as long as that vehicle is being used for the benefit of that applicant. So for example, an adult child may be driving that applicant to a medical appointment or to church or to lunch or out and about. That one vehicle is still excluded regardless of value.
Thank you.
Can they ever take the car away? Because our situation is the title's in my mom's car. She's no longer driving it. So I got rid of my car and, well, we live together now, but, so I drive her around, but do they ever look at her asset and say, well, she's not driving, so we're gonna take it?
The question is whether they can ever take that vehicle away if they do find that the applicant is not using it. The rule is, as long as it is being used for the benefit of that person. And as long as they're still alive, and you're using it for their benefit, yes.
So with the healthcare directive, is this something you can go online, Google, print out, fill out, and sign, and it's legal and binding? Or is it a notarized thing, or what?
The doctors have?
Okay, the question related to a healthcare directive is where can you find one? I believe the Department of Commerce might have one. Many of the hospitals have one. We obviously have one that we use. And the question was, how is it filled out? As long as it's filled out and it's either witnessed by two people that are not named as agents on the document or one notary.
The
So it's either
doctors have
notarized.
them?
And the second question was, do doctors have them? Sometimes. Sometimes they have, like, I know the 5 wishes is often handed out within the Alina medical system. Sometimes doctors have them. As if you ask your specific doctor, they probably do not have it sitting in their office in their hands. They might have one otherwise. I have Googled healthcare directives. I found one, maybe Department of Commerce. I have found several out there. So yes, they do exist. Make sure it's Minnesota healthcare directive.
Okay, thanks.
Let's take right here in the blue shirt.
Okay. I was recently hospitalized and I was going to Alina and I was going to Fairview, I think. And they gave me honoring choices. So I filled all this out and they told me, well, when you're there, they'll have the notarizer in the public come up and they'll sign it. Well, they didn't because they put me up for surgery and never got signed. But
Okay.
they said they would honor it anyways. How does that work?
Question related, okay, I was wrong. Is honoring choices, that's within the Alina system. 5 wishes is within another one. Oh, honoring choices is Fairview's form. She's wondering if it's valid if it has not been notarized. No, unless it's been witnessed by 2 people who are not agents, then
I
no.
called them and they said that it would be.
If they say they would honor it, then they may honor it within their system. I would not rely on that.
I think it's kind of crazy.
So-
They shouldn't have told me to bring it, because they have, the person that was gonna notarize it didn't come up. They put me under before that happened.
So what I would do now is if you filled out the form already and it hasn't been, you have had people sign it, that I was gonna say, make sure it's validly executed.
Great.
That might have been a specific situation where they agreed to honor it in that certain scenario.
I called them later, they said they would honor, but that doesn't mean anything when it's not signed.
Right.
And in the back there, I saw the hand, light blue.
What supersedes, that's more current, the POLST, the health directive, or the living will? Which one is the one that
Okay, the question is the interchanging relationship between healthcare directives, POLST, and living wills.
What's a living will?
A living will is a document that used to be used, I'll answer that first. It used to be used as part of your wills. I know my parents way back when, maybe 40 years ago, had those as part of their wills. That was a document that honored the do not resuscitate or the do not intubate, those end-of-life decisions. If you have a POLST that is more recently executed since that living will, I would argue that the POLST is now valid. That would be because it's more recent. A healthcare directive and a POLST actually work interchangeably because the healthcare directive, the only part of the healthcare directive that is legally binding, okay, I'll say, is the person you name as an agent. So you might say you don't want to be resuscitated or you don't want to be fed with a feeding tube or you don't not want whatever, but your agent, the person you name as that agent, can decide to do whatever they want. It's just telling that agent what you want. It's letting that agent know your wishes. So with the healthcare directive, the part that's legally binding is the person you name as your agent. A POLS, is signed with doctor's orders. Those two would act interchangeably. POLS, the provider orders for life-sustaining treatment, that would control. I mean, that's something you want to have on your refrigerator. If an ambulance comes to your home and they see that there, then they know what you want. Otherwise, those ambulance people are required to
Get a tattoo right here.
Yeah, a tattoo. Otherwise, those ambulance professionals or the emergency professionals are required to resuscitate you. That's just part of and that's been big recently. So make sure if you have a pulse, you have it visible.
I have one on my refrigerator and then I carry a small copy folded up stuff in my purse.
What you've just suggested is not only that is it really important to have the documents, but also to have a discussion with whomever that person is who's going to carry out your wishes prior to the time they see them listed.
That's exactly it. So I'll reiterate the statement she made, which is what I was saying regarding healthcare directives is, yes, it is important not just to have the document, but to have that important conversation with the people you name as your agents as far as what your wishes are. Do you want life-sustaining? Do you want extraordinary measures to keep you alive or not, essentially?
And I do have a question.
Okay? Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine.
We put all our estate planning together, bills, healthcare directors and so on, together when we were living in Georgia, moved back up here 3 years ago. Do we need to change those? Are they valid?
The question is, I have documents in another state. Are they valid in the state of Minnesota? Maybe. What I always recommend to people, my clients who move to another state, is I recommend that they meet with an attorney from that state just to have them reviewed to make sure that their wishes would be carried out. Some states are community property states. Minnesota is not a community property state. I can't name them all off the top of my head. Attorneys are most often licensed in one state, maybe two. So I always recommend that if you moved here from another state, you have a local attorney review what you have just to make sure, first off, that what you want is still what you want and that your wishes will be carried out.
Thank you.
And how often do you recommend having like health care or the financial papers updated, or are they good forever?
I'll answer the question kind of even more broadly than it was asked. The question was, how often should healthcare directives and powers of attorney be updated? I recommend a review, even with my youngest clients, every 5 years or so. Do a review of your will, trust, healthcare directive, power of attorney, see if circumstances have changed. You might have a child that now has a disability issue or some substance abuse issues. You might want to make some changes there. Also, just take a look at your healthcare directives, powers of attorney, even maybe once a year, just to make sure that your agents are still living and that they're still the people you want to make those decisions for you. And
my aging mother is living with me because she's on a waiting list for senior housing. She has money from the sale of a house. So we're basically supporting her. She has a couple bills, but we buy her groceries, all of that. If she gives us money and is spending down, like, could she give us $5,000 and say, remodel your bathroom as kind of a thanks for letting me live here for free, or would that be considered a gift?
Okay, the question is related to a parent who might be living with you wanting to provide something as a thank you for allowing them to live there as part of their spend down. There's a couple of ways to address that scenario. First off, just giving you the money. No, they can't just give you the money. If they're living with you and your bathroom needs to be remodeled so that they can use it while they're living there, that's just fine. They could pay for that bathroom remodel because it's so that your home can be suitable for them. Otherwise, if you are hoping to have them live there and they would like to provide something to help you in your way of your expenses, there's something called you could either do a lease with your mom to have her live there, a validly executed lease where you take you report that rent as income, and then If you're providing services for your mom as well, there's something called a personal services contract. And they're kind of specific creatures. Again, if you're providing personal services for your mom and you do certain things for her that would cost money in the community, you go get, there's different ways you go get quotes in the community for what that would cost, and you do a contract. You would want to use a payroll service to even take out taxes for that and whatever. But there are ways to make it happen, but that's very specific. I would not just have her, as soon as she goes to move out, give you money to help you because she lived there.
Right. Unless she has unlimited amounts of money and never needs public assistance.
Right, unless you can survive for 61 months without having to get on county assistance.
Yeah. Yes.
Lisa, how important is location when you're ready to move? You didn't talk about location.
Location in regards to where your home is located?
No, where you're moving, like to a townhome or assisted living or wherever.
I'm still not sure.
Independent living,
How important is the location of where you're moving to?
yeah.
Like the city or the type of living situation, which one?
Well, area.
The area.
Okay, I'll answer that both ways. How important is location when it comes to real estate? Very. So the home where you live now, the price will largely be determined by the neighborhood, the amenities, the location, the school district, the price point of the neighboring homes. All of those things go into the value of your current home. And in addition, where you're moving to will also, whether you're purchasing, certainly the price will be determined by location, and the rent costs are also largely determined by the location if you're moving into senior housing. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
The gentleman up front here.
I have a lot of money, and I have an old will that's decades old, 88 years old. And how do I know? Because I guess you said that I do need an update.
Did he just answer his own
I
question?
think he just answered his own question. The question was, I have a super old will, I have money.
But my question is, lawyers, my wife never wanted me to use this phrase, it depends on what far I go to, but it's gonna cost me to ask a lawyer to see if I need any work done on my will. And it usually costs me 4 legs and an arm if I go the wrong place. So, but you give me a break, who should I go to? I don't feel like paying a lot of money for that.
Okay, the question is,
Do you do a complimentary assessment?
okay, the question is, who should you see to determine, what attorney should you see about updating a will or power of attorney, healthcare directive? Because you don't want to pay if you need an update.
Yeah.
There are some attorneys that offer a free initial consultation for those estate planning documents, to review your documents. Some will come.
How about you?
I will tell you that Elder Law Services does not offer a free consultation because what we do is most often medical assistance planning. So we do the wills, trusts, healthcare directives, powers of attorney, always with our eye towards having to apply for county benefits at some point potentially. So in that realm of practice, if we provided initial consultations for free, most often our meetings are an hour, and that is all that we ever do with the client. So we do not provide initial consultations free of charge. We charge an hourly rate for a minimum of an hour. Okay. Then any documents that are drafted out of that meeting are just a flat fee based on that, and we can talk through those fees. I don't really feel like putting our fees on television, so we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But there are estate planning attorneys that do offer free initial consultations to review the document. But if you're sure you're going to need them drafted anyway, then we can often roll that consultation fee into the drafting of the documents. If that makes sense.
In the back?
Teresa, I have a question for you. In regards to qualifying for medical assistance and the asset rules, I've read there's a clawback. So if you have, let's say you have a couple and one of them qualifies for medical assistance and the other stays in the original house. Is it true that if that applicant then dies, that the state will actually claw back the medical assistance like funds that they received from the estate of, but once everyone passes, well both spouses pass, if that makes sense?
Okay, the question is related to what happens when a spouse has received medical assistance and there was a home involved in the relationship. Is there, it's called the state recovery for that medical assistance. Yes, there is. It will be, yes, eventually the state will get their share. There are some techniques to make sure that happens the furthest down the line as possible. But, so oftentimes if the applicant spouse is going into a facility and if it's possible, we'll put the name and the community spouse's, or we'll put the home and the community spouse's name only. So then if once the applicant is on medical assistance, the community spouse then wants to sell the home, they can do that. And that money doesn't then disqualify their spouse for medical assistance. However, once that, if the applicant spouse dies and then the community spouse later dies, yes, they will take a look. The state will try to come after, what from the community spouse's estate. So whatever's left in the community spouse's estate at the time they pass. So if you have $10 when the community spouse dies, the state will get $10. It doesn't pass on to kids or anything, that debt. Yes.
In the back. Could you just go back a minute and repeat what you were saying? Certain documents, either it was the polls or the living healthcare. Which one did you say is so important you should have it on your fridge? I kind of spaced out there.
The question is which document I recommended put on your fridge. It's the polls, and it's normally canary colored. And it often goes on your fridge. And that's the document that if emergency personnel need to come into your home, they will see whether you want to be resuscitated or not.
And you get those forms how?
And you get the polls from your doctors. That has to be signed by an MD.
You can print it off on the internet, right?
No?
No? Okay, just making our stuff up here.
You can.
Well, I'm not sure if you can print it off or not, but it does need to be filled out with your doctor.
Right. You can print it off.
Oh, she says you can print it off online. There you go. But then you need to take it in and have it signed by your doctor. You make those decisions together. So I don't think I could get a pulse at this point. I'm too healthy to decide that I don't want to be resuscitated or intubated in an emergency scenario. That's something my doctor would probably not give me.
And was there another document that also needs to be posted on your fridge, polls and something?
The question was, is there another document that should be posted on your fridge? Not necessarily. The healthcare directive, you just need to make sure that it's on file at the hospital, that your agent actually has a copy of it, so that they can prove to the hospital or to the professional that they do have a say in what you want done. Yeah.
What other questions do we have out there? Well, since Marn, go ahead.
Another question that having not to do with health. If you had a lot of money, just say $100,000, say something, and you wanted to give that to your kids early before you die, I go into all these seminars, I can never figure out, do you pay gift taxes? Who pays them, or can you just let it go until you die and they put it part of your estate?
Okay, the question is related to if you decide you want to give $100,000 to your kids before you die, are there gift tax implications related to that? Right now, the federal gift tax limit for lifetime is about $5.6 million that you can give without paying gift taxes. What you need to do, and when you might even know this better than I do, but what you do is if you decide to give more than $14,000 to a child in a year, you're supposed to file an informational gift tax return with your taxes that year. Okay, then what happens when you die is the IRS is going to calculate all those gift tax returns that you've done and then determine if your estate owes a gift tax on that
So
or
you
not.
wouldn't know what you had, like at $100,000.
At $100,000, if you're giving $100,000, no, you would not pay gift tax at that time. No, and the recipient would not pay gift tax at that time.
Well, they-
or ever.
They'd never pay.
No, they would never pay gift tax, no.
But you gotta fill out that return.
You need to fill out the it's an informational only return with the IRS, but yes, anytime you give an individual more than $14,000.
My mother-in-law has, a good amount of inheritance, and what she does every year is she can give up to 10,000 without impacting anything. So she gives 10,000 to each family.
But
Isn't
the
that true? You said-
distinction between gifting from MA and.
Yes, there's a definite distinction between, yes, I was answering only from the IRS perspective. There's a definite distinction between giving for MA purposes and medical assistance purposes and giving for IRS tax purposes. I was only answering the tax question there. The medical assistance rule is if you give $100,000 away and all you have is $150,000, then all of a sudden you end up in a facility and you're going to eventually need to apply for county assistance. That's going to incur a penalty period. That's going to be, it's bad. Penalties are bad.
One of the things I heard, and maybe this isn't right, but if someone has gifted continuously throughout the years, it's been a thing that they give each grandchild $5,000, that is not penalized. Is that true?
The question is whether if it's like, they always give $5,000 for Christmas or birthdays or whatever to a grandchild. Not necessarily, Rachel, that whether that's okay or not because it's continuous giving, not necessarily. Oftentimes that comes into play in terms of a donation to a church. You always give $100,000 or $100 a week or $100 a month. That would be considered continuous giving. However, the county can decide at any time that those are gifts that need to be pulled back in. It's a 5-year look back on that, yes, 61 months.
Teresa, what is the penalty? You talked about the penalties. What kind of penalties are there?
The question is related to the penalty period. The penalty period is the dollar amount of the gift. The penalty is, it's incurred at the time. So say this gentleman in front of me, let's assume, are you single?
Yes.
Let's assume he's single, okay? So he is spent down. He has $3,000 left. He's ready to apply for assistance, okay? But he gave $100,000 away within the last 5 years. So you're going to take that $100,000 as a numerator, and the denominator is a dollar figure that the state comes up with every year. I believe it's about $6,300 this year. So you take $100,000 divided by 6,300 equals a number. What is it?
16 months.
16 months, awesome. Somebody can do math here better than I can. That is 16 months. So he's going to get a letter from the county saying, congratulations, you're approved for medical assistance. That will kick in 16 months from now. Meaning that somehow, some way, somebody, his kids probably, are going to have to pay for his care for those 16 months.
And it doesn't matter what time during the 5 years, as long as, even if it was like, 48, it's any time during the 5 months, it's just that denominator.
Correct. It does not matter when within that 61 months that happened. It does not matter. So, I mean, we have some tools to try to help cover that penalty period. Maybe your kids are going to kick in and pay for if it's 48 months, pay for the 12 months or whatever it might be. But gifts are very dangerous in medical assistance world.
One of the questions I get is for Maura. Who can offer personal loans and lines of credit while selling their home? Like if they don't have liquid assets, who can offer personal loans and lines of credit?
That would be going to the bank.
Just going to the bank. There's not any companies that specifically work with seniors or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. Do you have one?
There are some companies that like to market doing something like a bridge loan or a personal loan. If you say you wanted to move before your home sold because your unit is ready, and that seemed like the most stress-free way to make this process work for you, my suggestion would be to make sure that you understand the fees and origination costs, and any bank is required to give you a statement of what those are when you take a loan out. Make sure that you understand what those are so you're not paying too much.
Okay. What is the benefit of selling off life insurance policies? I know when people talk through different funding options and we go through the list, we don't know what that's worth. What is
Right, so we look at each policy individually, and typically we'll look to the cash value. So if we're doing medical assistance planning, and we talk about excludable and includable assets, cash value of your life insurance is available. It's counted.
Is there a range, or is it really just?
Each policy is individual as far as what they have in there. So I look to the death benefit versus the cash value. And kind of, again, if we're doing medical assistance planning, we're kind of doing that inventory of assets, and we're looking at the tax implication, the investment implication, and death benefit implication of using those to determine what order.
Okay. What other kinds of questions? Anybody?
When might it be advisable to do a reverse mortgage? You know what I'm saying?
It depends. Reverse mortgages can be wonderful tools. I look at it as a product. The same way I would look at a mutual fund, a CD, burying money in the backyard. It's a product. And when it fits really well, but you cannot put a square in a round hole. So it's very much individualized. But yes, they can be used, and they can provide a lot of benefit.
Can it cause any harm?
Answer that one.
Can they cause any harm?
Yes, they can cause harm if not used properly. There's directions with those. You can do a reverse mortgage. You are still responsible for the property taxes, the insurance, and the upkeep of home. We read in the papers most often about the nightmares. And my grandma lost her home. She did a reverse mortgage, and they promised she'd never lose it. Well, what you didn't hear was she didn't pay the association, she didn't pay the property tax, and she didn't keep up on the home. So there are, maintenance issues that come up with them.
In general, you would not use a reverse mortgage if you were thinking about moving soon. You can use reverse mortgages to purchase your next home if you're downsizing. And you are required to take counseling and take a class when you take out a reverse mortgage. So they generally will counsel you on the pros and cons to help you determine if it's a good fit for you. Back to everybody is an expert when it comes to real estate. I'd encourage you to, if it's something you're interested in doing, to do your homework and see if it is a good fit before you listen to someone else tell you it's not a good fit for you, before you get all the information.
What about lines of credit on your mortgage to do improvements?
The question is about lines of credit on your mortgage for improvement, and probably that's for Lisa and I both. It's a loan, so more often than not, I'm meeting with a family that's exhausted their line of credit, trying to accomplish something, and we don't have the cash flow to continue with the payments. So again, I think it's very specific what it's going to be used for, and most importantly, how you're going to pay it back.
The difference is with a reverse mortgage, there is no monthly payment. And with a HELOC or a home equity line of credit, there is a monthly payment. And both of them cost money to take out. So if you're going to live in the home for a while, there's certainly less risk to taking those out. But I always think if you haven't sat with a financial planner or somebody to do that work with you, and if you're questioning if it's a good idea, meet with someone and get a big picture idea about where you're at financially and what your long-term goals are before you make those decisions. It's my best tip.
I think my question is for Teresa. Back to this, my mom has this chunk of cash from a house sale. Would there be any consequence during bad that would happen if we got an interest-free loan from her? She loaned us and we pay her back. I mean, she's eventually going to be on medical assistance. It's not that much money. When she goes into senior housing, it's not going to probably take her long to get to her $3,000. So would there be any danger in doing that, in all this stuff?
The question is related to taking out maybe a loan from your parent to help with some expenses. If you decided to take out a loan, that is something that the county hasn't addressed as much in my experience. I haven't seen the decisions related to it. However, if you decided to do that, make sure it's not interest-free and make sure it's documented with a promissory note. So you would want to have a promissory note, and you would want to then make sure it's at least the lowest applicable rate for interest. You can get those figures online, or I can get those for you, for the term of the loan. That will be considered income to her when she does apply for medical assistance. So that is considered income to her, that
Is the
payment
note-
that you make.
Is the note considered an asset at the time of application?
The question is whether the note would be considered an asset at time of application. Potentially, it would kind of depend on the dollar amount of the note. I would advise against doing it if it's already
She really wants
happened.
to just like give us, may say,
I
here,
hear
take
that.
this
I know.
and remodel your bathroom. She
Right,
wants to do it,
she
and
cannot give
we
it,
would pay her
no.
back.
Right,
But, yeah, I just don't know.
if it's already happened, I would
It
say,
hasn't.
make
It
the
hasn't.
document with promissory note, do the interest rate. If it hasn't, I'd still advise against it. I
Okay.
understand she wants to give you
Yeah.
something. She really can't.
But
She
it
really,
could
really
backfire
can't.
on us.
It could
So
backfire considerably at the time she applies for medical assistance. If it's not that much money, it's not worth it. Maybe
Sure.
do that lease with her. Charge a rent. That's call around, see what rent is in the area.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it, and do a valid lease with your mom.
You can't give your money away and then charge the taxpayers later on for your upkeep.
For your upkeep.
I like that.
The thing with gifts is you need to make sure that you're getting fair market value in return. So if, for example, you want to hire your grandson to mow your lawn for you, that's fine, that's great. Don't pay him 5 times what you would pay the market going rate for somebody to mow your lawn. And have it in writing and have a contract with your grandson to mow that lawn. Fair market value, return of dollar back. So, yeah.
I think a lot of times it's difficult for our parents and even our grandparents when they're wanting to give. And I think that's by nature. They still want to take care of us. So helping families understand kind of the bigger picture, the 5-year, the 10-year plan, and kind of saying, I appreciate you want to do that, but number one, that puts you at risk for being in a penalty period for medical assistance. It puts us at risk because we don't know what your healthcare costs are going to be in the coming months. So as much as I'd love to give you $5,000, you might need the $5,000.
Can I ask Teresa a question in regards to real estate? I whispered
Teresa
to her already.
or me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Teresa.
So, one of the things that we run into a lot because we work with older adults is the way in which the home is sold can affect medical assistance eligibility, and not a lot of people know that. In fact, if you hire a real estate agent that doesn't specialize in working with seniors, they likely won't know that because they don't need to. So would you take a minute to talk about what that means?
I can. And there are a couple of rules related to selling your real estate. This would most often occur if you're trying to sell it to a related party. So for example, if Maura said she has adult children, if she wanted to sell her home to one of her children, okay, the rules are you have to sell it for at least the tax assessed value. Or you can hire a private appraiser to come out and appraise the property and pay an independent appraiser to appraise it, and you can take that lowest dollar amount. However, it has to be one of those amounts. You cannot give a discount to a related party. If it is truly an arm's length transaction, there aren't as many concerns there, but if you ever decide to sell it to a related party, just know that. And contracts for deeds are a little risky there as well. So if you can sell it outright, have your child take out a mortgage, buy the property, make it look as arm's length as possible.
Any other questions?
Yes.
No? Oh, go ahead.
I thought there would be some mention about memory care and helping people here. I thought I read something about that. Did you already discuss that?
About
Was able to-
care, and specifically, what kind of questions about memory care do you have?
What are various levels and what's available in the community?
Sure. I suppose I can help with
My
that.
mom is
It's
just
called
diagnosed
navigating
with-
senior care, and so,
Yeah.
the question I believe is, what are the different levels of care?
Yeah, and what is available within Bloomington? I thought that's what
For
was gonna
memory
be
care?
happening here today.
Well, specifically, I'd be happy to sit down with you and go through all the different levels. We've got different help back there. Luke is from Martin Luther campus. I worked in memory care. I was a caregiver myself. So I can tell you more about the levels of care. It varies different places. So if you're in an assisted living memory care, typically they don't provide, they provide a high level of care up to maybe 2-person assists, and it's more inclusive of medication management, different things like that. Cost is typically around $5,000-$6,000 a month with care and rent included. But again, that's just an average, I would say. Do you have any specific questions about memory care? Programming.
Does medical assistance cover any of that if they?
Yeah, elderly waiver. Does elderly waiver cover it? And it depends on which community you go to. So one question I always tell people to ask as they navigate different senior care options is, what happens if I move here and I run out of money? Or say that's one of the first things you should say. If my parent doesn't have any money and they're on elderly waiver, you should tell that to the person right away as you're touring. There are communities that do not participate in public assistance programs whatsoever. So you want to make sure that if you're moving into a community that you know what happens if you run out of money, that they have a plan. Because you don't want to spend all your finances there and then all of a sudden you run out of money and they don't participate in elderly waiver, and then you have to find alternative housing. They'll give you a couple different options. They'll say, here are a couple places that participate in the programs, but often those communities have a waiting list. I know at Meadowwoods, which is on the Martin Luther campus, they do participate in public assistance programs such as elderly waiver. However, most places have like an allotted amount of apartments that they have set aside for elderly waiver. So say they have 20 apartments, maybe like 5 of those being memory care for elderly waiver, and then you would go on a waiting list. But I say the best thing is to always move in so you can start spending your money there, because often they'll choose internal candidates to go onto the program before they'll reach outside. But we can get more specific with the different care levels and pricing if you want to stay after. Yeah. Yes.
If a parent is going to go into a nursing home, is that the time that you get a social worker, or how do you find a social worker to help you make those decisions?
A social worker. A lot of community. You want to take it, Luke?
Sure. I haven't had the microphone yet.
He's an attention,
So a lot of the times when a family member does move into a long-term care, they tend to have social workers on site there. I know that the county also has social workers that help in that transition process, just because in my own experience, my grandmother moved into medical assistance 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a bear trying to navigate. And my mom, God bless her heart, helped out a lot. And had it not been for her, who is kind of in the healthcare profession, who knows how to navigate those systems, who has some of that experience, it does get to be challenging. And so definitely try and make those plans as soon as possible. Find somebody that can help sit there and kind of go through that paperwork, or if not, reach out to the county, reach out to different communities. I know Ebenezer has a plethora of information that we just love sharing with people, just because we feel that the more educated people can be. Of course, I had to sputter on the word educated. So, but there's just tons of resources. It's just a matter of navigating through them. And so we're happy to help in whatever way. There's county assistance that's always happy to help. And if she is in long-term care, or what they consider the traditional nursing home, they would have a social worker on site to help navigate that. So if she was moving to medical assistance, a lot of the times that community will actually assist in helping transition into medical assistance or the elderly waiver program.
Can I ask you a question? What are you hoping to accomplish with the social worker? What needs do you see that need to be fulfilled?
I feel like my mom is having some memory issues, some confusion, but she's still in her own place, and so I'm just trying to figure out when is the right time. She says sometimes I'm fine here, and then sometimes I need to go someplace.
So
I need to
now
go
would be a
now.
good time.
And
Yeah.
so I just need maybe some outside help navigating this transition.
We are coming up with a number of companies that are small, private pay, independent case managers. And any of them would be fantastic to sit down, do an assessment. That assessment would both be psychological, social, emotional, spiritual, and financial. And they could then give you really great recommendations. But if you're looking for help with medical assistance application, elder law attorney.
So do you have those resources?
We're all like overflowing with information. Yes, yeah, we'll give them all those names and numbers to you afterwards.
Yeah, go for it. And one more thing that I've mentioned the financial aspects of elderly waiver and medical assistance. There's also that health aspect.
Yeah.
So when you go to apply for medical assistance, you submit the application, and if they're still in their home, a public health nurse will come to the home and do an assessment on your mom. And that public health nurse is going to be a gatekeeper to where your mom can end up to receive county assistance. So what they do, and this is normally a several 3-4 hour process where they will meet with your mom and you and anybody else who's close to your mom and understands her concerns. It's a time when everybody has to be brutally honest about what their concerns are and what her needs are. Then that county worker will put together a report and make a recommendation as to whether they need memory care or whether she needs nursing home or just assisted living. And that's going to be a gatekeeper for which public assistance program you would apply for. So whether it's the elderly waiver or the medical assistance, and then that can help guide you in where you're looking for a facility. And what I would advise you is when they're there, before they leave, is just say to them, okay, you spent 4 hours with my mom. Can you tell me what you're going to put in your report? Just what's your end assessment? Should I be looking at nursing homes? Should I be looking at memory care facilities? Where should I be looking so I can get her a proper placement?
And we do have a public health nurse that comes here every Thursday, so you can come here. We do have a public health department here.
Bloomington public health nurses are awesome. They rock.
Good.
But I do want to, we'll wrap up here, but I do want to say in regards to your question about a care transition specialist or a social worker, being part of Fairview, we do have somebody specifically for that. Her name is Sandy McGurran. She's phenomenal, and she is a care transition specialist. And so if you find a community that is part of a healthcare system like, Ebenezer is part of Fairview, they often will have a social worker, even if it's not nursing home, but assisted living, that will help you navigate all the options and put all the pieces together for you. And my one word of advice as we close here is please, please, please don't, I might get in trouble for this, but don't use free referral agencies. The ones that say, we'll help navigate the care. They have contracts with certain people, so if they are free, they're charging somebody else. Unless they're a smaller company and they're hands-on and go to the appointments with you and help you find out what is the best option for you or your mom or dad, do not go to them. That was my one word of advice. Any last questions as we wrap up here? We'll stay back, so if you have specific questions that you want to ask each one of us, but good. Let's give a round of applause to our leadership.